wanted to jump right into it. So, everybody, this is Scott Durkin. He is the Chief Operating Officer of Douglas Elliman. Scott joins us from a long storied career of successfully managing some of the top brokerages in New York before joining us at Douglas Elliman. He was working directly with Barbara Corcoran and Pam Liebman with the Corcoran Group, and he watched that company grow exponentially from its infancy to the powerhouse that it's become. And so, of course, Douglas Elliman and Corcoran have the largest market share in Manhattan. Scott, we're going through some challenging times, not just as a city, but really globally. And so, no doubt that COVID-19 and the coronavirus is an exogenous event. But I'm having a lot of conversations with our clients about their concern about where New York is headed. So I wanted to invite you in to our conversation so you could talk a little bit from your perspective, because you handle so many different regions and you're hearing a lot of different things from Florida to California, Colorado, of course, with Joshua Sasklove and Aspen, and our friends down in Houston. So maybe you could talk a little bit about sort of where we were, before this really set in. So, sort of Q1, early part of Q1, what were you seeing in the business?
Sure. I think what was most interesting about everything that's been happening is that right before, it's interesting, it was Friday the 13th when everything shut down.
Yeah, I remember it well.
I have weekend guests here that came for the weekend and they're still here. So 5 weeks later, thank God, I love them, but they couldn't go back to the city. So Friday the 13th, if you stop at that date, our March was up almost 30% from the prior year. So we were
measuring that. Are you measuring that on GCI and closed deals?
I'm measuring that on written.
So written is things that are in contract, things that actually. So in terms of contract volume, buyers and sellers agreeing, signing purchase agreements.
Correct.
That measurement, just in March just the first 2 weeks,
the very
was up
high
year-over-year 30%,
almost 30%, and so we were very, very happy with what was going on, and I think that's what's different from any other adjustment we've had. Say, they call it the '87 crash, or 9/11, or the mortgage 2008, the mortgage-backed securities issue. We were all super busy. The markets were healthy. Florida was up, double digits. California, Boston, Houston, New York, of course. So we had a very healthy market. We were all very positive about everything that was happening. Yeah. So this is different because going into other issues that we had years back, our market was super healthy in a way, and interest rates had just dropped to record lows.
Yeah, early March.
Yep. So that's why I think we're seeing all of this pent-up demand to get back into the market as it is our profession, but also to finish what we had started. Sure. And if you look back, and I'm able to see what's happening, for instance, in 08 and 09, we had an enormous drop-off of signed contracts that were already done, where people either negotiated getting their deposits back, or they lost it and they just walked away. That's really not happening right now, you know? And I think the phrase that is out there is sheltering in place has really helped the real estate industry in a way that everyone wants their shelter. And so when we're out of this, they're going to get their shelter for hopefully the next one, but hopefully there'll never be another one, but just for a comfort level, and that they're not stuck in a densely populated city like for Manhattan or any vertical city that is experiencing the cluster of sickness and having the biggest numbers of fatalities and cases. So I think
when you look at the concentration of the places where we're having the highest number of sick, it's on a per capita basis. I would say that sure, New York is in the headlines a lot, but it's really a matter of density, right? And it's also a matter of people not taking it seriously. So there was a story that I read last week about the meat processing plant in South Dakota where the governor is just not taking it seriously. So she's not, she didn't initially mandate a stay-at-home order. So, wherever that's the case, you're going to see a spread. And now that the federal government and the president has handed it over to the governors to figure out when it's safe to open up their respective states, I'm afraid that you're going to see this virus. I think you're going to see it spread a little bit in these states that aren't taking it as seriously, because really all it takes is one person to then infect, a variety of others. But that said, you raise an interesting point about people really appreciating their homes and what they have. And so I've spoken to a number of people who, have places upstate or have places in Long Island. I just spoke to another client of mine who's down in Hilton Head. So I think you're going to see this definite march or more intent to find weekend places. I think that market is going to see a huge upswing once things return back to normal. So I think this summer is going to be a very active one for the second home market. Are you seeing any or getting any reports from our colleagues either upstate where you're hanging out?
Sure. I'm upstate now. I'm in the Catskills, and there's a real pent-up demand here. And there really, if you go online to look for, I'm in Ulster County, there's really nothing on the market right now. And it's not that they're holding it back. It's just, it's not there. Wow. And we're definitely a second home market. We're exactly 2 hours from the city. And there's nothing to buy right now. And there's nothing that was being built. Yeah. I think we're going to see a strong presence in the Hudson Valley. Of course, the Hamptons, we're so busy out there right now that we're just letting them work because they don't have enough time to show everything in one day. Wow. The rental market there, as you know and have read, has exploded. There was a mass exodus over that first week from the 13th to the 20th of March. But yeah, I think all of these second home markets, also markets that are maybe less than 2 hours by plane from a metropolitan area. So, Houston to Aspen is a quick run. New York to South Florida is a quick flight. So
I was thinking places more like maybe Buffalo, Pennsylvania, or Hartford, Connecticut.
I mean,
I'm only kidding. I love those places, but I know what you're talking about.
Well, if you can stretch it out, what's another 40-minute drive? And now the way we're all operating, we've learned a new way of doing business. Yeah. I look like I'm dressed for work from the waist up, but I think it's a new way of doing business. It's a new way of living. We're all working a lot more. I know that, and I know you know that. And I was an agent as well. I still am an agent at heart. So this is forcing us to manage our lives in a much different way. And I think we're able to do a lot more in one day than we ever could in the office because we don't have any interruptions.
That's right. Yeah. And so without those interruptions of people asking questions, et cetera, you're able to focus and actually get things done. You're able to make the calls that you never got a chance to. You're able to do the things that you didn't have the time to.
So Josh, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So you have a big office. Yeah. I know your office at 111 Fifth.
Right.
And how do you feel being completely removed from your team? Is it easier, harder, different to manage?
No, it's different. I mean, my team is really unique in that we're not just focused on our business, but we're focused on, the relationships and the fabric of, really family that we've created on the team. And so, I'm in touch with the members of the team and we miss one another. We have this, really fun banter and, personalities on the team. And, it really is a great community within the Douglas Elliman community. And it's really unique. And I think that's why most of the people on the team have been with me for, many years at this point. So it's not just about, why did he get that lead or why did she do that deal? It's really about, just helping one another and celebrating our collective success. So, we miss one another, but, that said, we're still in touch and, I speak to multiple members of the team on any given day and, I'm here to help and,
Good.
they're each doing their own thing. Some are self-isolating, others are taking their kids on walks, and we're doing the best to pass the time. So, can you tell me any specific examples of what agents are doing today in order to be innovative, both in terms of coaching their existing clients and nurturing new relationships?
Yeah, I think the most successful, and I don't like to use the word successful, I think the humanity of being a human is more important than pushing your business. But I think what's important is that agents are reaching out to their sphere of influence, and they're communicating with them on what's going on. I mean, I think real estate is the biggest asset that most people have that we know. And I ran into people at the end of our road recently, and they were all worried about the value of their home. And I feel like, I'm the expert. So I'm telling them, don't worry, you're going to be fine. And I think that's the big $64,000 question. So keeping in touch with all of your buyers and sellers and potential clients or customers, but not being a salesperson about it. I saw someone today post something about a deal they had done, and I don't think they should be. Don't be tone deaf when it comes to what people are going through. It's
100%.
Right. It's
really not about celebrating our successes in the face of so many people's adversity.
Right.
But it's really about coming to people both with empathy and with information that they can use. It doesn't have to be about you. Doesn't have to be
right.
Positive, rah rah rah. Now is a great time to buy, or the show must go on. So when this all set in that week leading up to Friday the 13th last month, I was really, what was top of mind for me was, don't be tone deaf. Better to say nothing than to say the wrong thing, because no one knows. That was the week, when things were changing practically by the hour. The governor came in and mandated that groups of no more than 50 people can congregate. Then it was groups of 10. Then it was, that was the same Thursday that Broadway was shut down.
Yeah.
And I actually had tickets to go to the In God's Love We Deliver show.
Yes.
But, that was canceled.
And
with that, we're sort of going through this phase, almost like, I hate to say it, but almost like, the death of a loved one, where you go through this shock, and then you go through sort of refusal to believe that it's actually happening. And then there's acceptance, and then grieving, and then, okay, we got to put one foot in front of the other and get back out there. And so, in that process, whether you're going through it personally, or you have a friend, colleague, or loved one who's going through it themselves, you need to be very sensitive, because this is the type of thing that you don't know who's impacted by it. And I've spoken to a few hundred people just in the last couple of weeks. Some of them are just sheltering in place. Some of them are at their house, on Long Island. Others are down in Florida. And, I'm surprised at, the people who have and haven't been impacted both personally and professionally. A client of mine, had the virus and overcame it. My sister-in-law had it, overcame it. So, fortunately, everyone I've known to get sick has overcome it. But you raise a very good point. Now is a good opportunity to just keep in touch with people. Let them know that you're there. Let them know that you support them, and you're going through this together.
Yeah, no, it's very important. I mean, I have a friend whose sewing machine broke, and I happen to have one of those. You look in the closet and you see, oh, I bought a sewing machine 5 years ago, and I'm trying to get her the sewing machine, but she's 2.5 hours away. But I might have time on the weekend to just drive up there and put it on her doorstep. She's making masks for her village.
Wow.
But it's things like that, because we'll always be there selling real estate, buying it, helping people. That's our job. And I think once we get out of this, we'll be doing that again. But I think for now, it's what we can do for others. And, we all feel so fortunate. God's Love reached out to me the other day, and they said, we really have a shortage of volunteers. And I know that Bridget Harvey had been really championing the cause, and Ann Cutbill and John Campbell, and I know I'll leave some names out, but everyone converged downtown to put together 144,000 meals in a bag, because
That's
these
incredible.
are, yeah. But, you know, like you said, the family of Elliman bringing people together, and it's something that we do without any reservations. I love watching Ann Cutbill, Lenane, cook every day.
Yeah.
You know,
she is really a force.
She is. She made a frittata that, you know, who knows what it tasted like, but just the whole, like, being real, you know, that's you have to be real. You cannot be real right now. And I think that it goes down to the basic tenet that people love doing business with people that they like, you know, and
there's something to be said for, you know, authenticity in this time of need. Right.
Right.
So where do you think we go, not just as a company, but as you know, a country, really, in terms of both, you know, personal and professional paths? Obviously, a time like this is going to breed innovation, but, you know, what do you think happens to us as a nation, and also specifically when it comes to real estate?
Yeah. Well, I think it also, one of the big things for me is, like, no more BS, you know, no, this really levels the playing field. And I think it sort of takes away what you felt was a crisis. And until you've lived through what we're living through, that we don't have any daily crises in our days. We're just, we're putting together people, we're mediators, we're deal makers. We can't forget that. And I think coming back to business life in the next month, hopefully, or 6 weeks, we'll realize that, wow, some of the things we really were worried about are just meaningless. And I'm just amazed that people get it. Some make it, some don't. Some don't have it. Some are asymptomatic. It's really scary. I think we have I'm very worried about the next 18 months, because this isn't over. You know, I think we'll become a society that no longer shakes hands, that no longer hugs, that I think our offices will probably change, and the way we lay them out. I think a lot more people will work mobilely. I think because they won't want to come in with 400 people on one floor. It just doesn't make any sense. So we may have to downsize some places, or reconfigure them, or limit the capacity in some of the offices, because maybe the building itself will limit capacity. We may have rules that change that way. So I think this coming back, we're not just going to flip a light switch. This is going to be a very long process.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a slow return to normal. Yeah. And when we get to quote unquote normal, then it's going to look much differently than it ever did before March 13th. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think happens to real estate values? I know neither one of us have a crystal ball. You know, my 9-volt battery died yesterday, but everybody wants to know, you know, when it comes to actual values and demand and supply, it's an interesting conversation. What's your interpretation of where we go with this, having been through, you know, all of these, you know, periods of uncertainty over the last, say, 25 to 30 years?
Right. So if I'm looking at it, I think there's a possibility, and I think there's an opportunity in this market for every buyer in every level, from first time, second home, third home, fourth home. Price, money is cheap. You can get an interest only 10-year for 2.8 or 3%. I mean, those numbers we haven't seen in years. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. I hope that the credit piece of it is worrisome, where people may not have the best credit coming out of this, but hopefully the government will help and with the, you know, with all of that, and people won't be dinged for perhaps a late payment. Right. But I think coming out of this, my gut feeling in my 31 years and being in the business is that we're just going to, I don't think we're going to see a big drop. We already saw the price reductions at the last 2 quarters of 19, and we were reaping those benefits in the first quarter of 2020 because we were so busy and everything was selling. So I think those have been adjusted already. And the sort of the chatter isn't that, oh my God, the market's crashing. It's not. I haven't had a single conversation about a deal dying or that the market's plummeting. So you know, and people in the industry, half of them are the sky's falling and half of them are eternal optimists. I think across the board, people just want to get back to work and finish what we were doing and continue to do what we were doing so well. And it was all so exciting. And we were thinking the other day, a week before that, we were in Summit celebrating 19 successes, launching our new website,
right,
launching our new CRM, and what we had on our new ad campaign.
Yeah.
It was incredible, but that seems like it was so long ago, even though it was only a week before the 13th. So we've got a lot to do when we get back, and we're going to launch our new ad campaign the last quarter and get everything sort of queued up to start again. And I think we can do it. We're used to it. There's no one more resilient than one of you. I mean, Josh, right? You do well in any market.
No, that's true. And historically, personally, I actually do well in markets that are transitioning, right? So 2019 was a year that had a lot of people, not doing as well as they had in the year prior. But, our business on the Rubin team kind of went like, and then 2019, and 2019 was one of our best years ever.
Right.
And it was incredible because it was a year that we were transitioning. We were sort of acclimating to the elimination of the SALT deduction. And then we also had the increase in the transfer and mansion tax in New York State. So people weren't really sure which end they were going to come out on. And of course, deals that were on the higher end, that pushed people off of the fence to actually make decisions and commit to buying properties because they did not want to incur these gargantuan taxes. The mansion tax went from 1% over $1 million. So if you're buying a property for the average price point of approximately $2 million in Manhattan, you're going to be paying $20,000 in mansion tax. It went up to a laddered structure, starting at 1% and ending around 3.5%.
Right.
So for people who are buying $10-20 million properties, you're now having to pay nearly $1 million just for the privilege of owning in Manhattan. So that worked out well for us, and we were continuing to see that accelerated growth just as a team into that first quarter of 2020, similar to what you were describing.
Wouldn't it be a nice silver lining if the SALT deduction came back?
Personally, and I'm not really into forecasting, but wouldn't it be interesting if we came back to this in say 18 to 24 months and we said, Josh Rubin told us that the SALT deduction was going to be implemented again, and here we are. Because I do forecast, I do see that happening. It's not something that they can just cut and never bring back, because essentially it winds up being double taxation, right?
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens, and of course the presidential election coming up, and so we'll see. I mean, may the best man win. But first and foremost, we have to get back on track. We have to get a vaccine for this virus, and most of all, we have to stay safe. So, with that, Scott, I really appreciate your time. And
thank you, Josh. Thank you. I think I've known you at least 20 years.
At least 20 years since our days at Corcoran.
You're amazing, and thank you for being who you are, and keep it up. And I look forward to next month when we can fist bump or whatever.
Whatever we do, right?
Okay.
Thanks.